Welcome back. So what does a troll, orc, or goblin even look like, and what is the difference? I'm pointing this out because in my game Dwarf, we had trolls and people kept calling them orcs. I'm one of the developers working on Dwarf. It's a tower defense dungeon crawler RPG, and it's out now on Steam and it's coming to Switch. It's on sale right now, so it's a good time to get it if you want to support the channel or whatever, you know? Trolls turn to stone in the sunlight, which is part of the lore in our game, so you can play with that. Something about trolls is that they often have a big nose. Like, look, this guy, that's a troll. But that looks like a giant. Now that's a troll. Yo, what movie is this? Yo. But look, trolls are depicted as green. Orcs are depicted as green. Like, look, this is an orc, right? And goblins are depicted as green. So really, it's kind of tough to differentiate between them so that every enemy doesn't look the same. In Dwarf, we gave them different weapons and different colors. Here's an example of a troll that we did for Dwarf. As you can see, it has eyes here, and then these are its teeth. This is 16 by 16. These are tiny sprites. But with that minimal amount of space, we still kind of managed to put in teeth. But if you draw a little bit larger than 16 by 16, for example, this enemy here is a little bit larger, we were able to get much more detail in the face. And I think here you can see the troll features. This troll has the giant teeth, a big nose, and big ears. So those are the characteristics that make it look like a troll. I think if we removed the big nose, it would look a little bit more like an orc or whatever. But the point I'm trying to make here is that you want to overemphasize certain features in order to portray what kind of character it is. All right, so I'm gonna make a new file and I'm gonna start this at 32 by 32. In the comment section below, let me know if you prefer 32 by 32 or 16 by 16. All of the art in Dwarf is designed to fit in a 16 by 16 sort of like grid. Some of the characters are a little bit bigger or whatever. They don't have to fit perfectly. But I'm thinking that for a future game, I'm gonna go with 32 by 32 because it is insanely difficult to put in all the details in a 16 by 16. So something I like to do to pick colors is to use another piece of art. It's often very difficult to pick colors. But for example, here, I love these colors. There's a little bit of pink here, making it look like a fleshy color, but it also has the grays in there to make it look creepy, bad, evil, or monstrous. So I'm just gonna copy this image. Now I pasted the image here in Aseprite, and what I can do is I can color pick from here to create my colors. This is a great way to get colors that already work together. It feels a little bit like cheating because I didn't, mess around for hours trying to pick these colors. But who has the time for that? And I don't know, like everything is an inspiration from something else, right? So the artwork that I'm gonna do is gonna be so far from this action figure or whatever this is that it doesn't even matter. And look at that color palette. It's amazing. So the way I like to start off is by creating a general shape, almost like a silhouette. And this is a great way to draw as well. I learned this actually from a concept artist. What I used to do is I used to draw stick figures, but stick figures is a great way to do it where you almost like create a skeleton, or using like big shapes or whatever. But I kind of like this method that I saw a concept artist do where he was mostly focused on the way he put it was putting mass down, showing where there's mass. So let's say this is the head of our troll. We're just gonna focus on the head for now. I'm kind of trying to decide the shape of it. I'm not finalizing any sort of lines or anything. I'm just trying to decide what kind of shape the troll is gonna have. I think troll heads are kind of big, right? They kind of have like big jaws. I think it will be more intimidating if it has a big jaw, and we want it to be kind of round near the top. And now I can take sort of like a darker color. Actually, I'm gonna take this peachy color, and then I'm gonna try to decide sort of where I want it to be a little bit more peachy. So for example, we might have a nose over here, and then maybe like cheeks over here. And I'm kind of just tossing colors down. It doesn't need to be perfect right now. I can also put this symmetry tool down, and now everything I draw on one side flips over to the other side, and I love this tool. By the way, this program is called Sprite, and there's a link in the description. I'm not sponsored by them or anything like that. I get a tiny little kickback if you buy it through that link, so that'd be much appreciated. But here I'm just kind of like deciding where things are gonna be. So for example, the ears, right? The eyes, and then what I like to do is, I'm gonna take the symmetry tool off. What I like to do is now move stuff around. So I thought those eyes were kind of high up. I'm gonna go for a little bit more kind of top-down view. Also, I think that giant noggins are more synonymous with trolls and stuff like that, and especially like giant brows as well. So I think I got kind of like the shapes where I want them. And now I'm going to, this yellow was for the teeth, I think. Yeah, he had some yellow teeth over there. So I'm going to throw that symmetry tool back, and I'm just going to sort of like put the tusks out here. But look, I'm not finalizing where this is. What I'm doing now, the important thing to do now is to decide kind of how big you want things to be. So for example, I'll draw something like this, and I'm holding the mouse down the entire time using the pencil tool. And now I look at that and I decide, oh, are those tusks too big or not? And then I can hit Control Z and I remove the whole thing. Now I can draw a smaller tusk and decide, okay, do I like that or not? And I can hit Control Z and remove the whole thing. So I like to sort of experiment with different sizes. I think the giant tusks are pretty badass, but I don't think they need to be excessively large. Maybe I would do that for like horns or something, but not for like the teeth. And I kind of want to show that there are multiple teeth in the mouth, not just these like tusks. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn off the symmetry tool. I'm gonna try to kind of like lay out some teeth in here if possible. It might be kind of hard, but I think I can do it. So instead of like having a black dot in between, whatever, like a super dark color in between every tooth, another way that this is a little trick. Let's say we have like a bunch of teeth here, but we really want to emphasize that there's multiple teeth there, but we don't have enough room to put a space between each tooth. A cool trick that you can do is just darken some of them up a lot. So for example, I'll have a dark one here, here, and here, and then between these two, you see I can't really put this color there. So here I could lighten it up or make it more yellow. But just having variety in these teeth here makes it look like there's a bunch of teeth without you having to put sort of like a dark contrasty separation between them. So instead of separating them with a dark color when there's not enough room, you can just separate them by having each tooth be a different color. And by the teeth being different colors, it also kind of emphasizes that they're messed up, and maybe one's a little bit further back, one's a little bit forward. So it's a cool little easy trick for making it look like there's a bunch of teeth. Just make them different colors. And people always make teeth white, but as you can see, it kind of looks good, and it looks like you thought a little bit more about it when you make teeth different colors, like shades of yellow. I mean, this is a monster, so he's probably not brushing his teeth. He's probably not brushing his teeth going to the dentist. So that was just the bottom row, but we honestly would want to have teeth on the top row as well. But now that just looks like a ton of teeth, and I think that it would actually be much cooler if the mouth was probably open, because if we open the mouth, then I can sort of like just emphasize on a few teeth, you know, like that, like ah. And expression is also really appealing. I love old pixel art games that had characters make different expressions, right? And if you think about like RPGs, a lot of times they'll like pixel art RPGs, a lot of times they'll have portraits so that they can show expressions. And that's something that we did in Dwarf as well. We created different expressions for the character portraits. I'm thinking about making the nose so big that it goes down a little bit into the mouth. And then these are the nostrils right here on the sides. I think that makes the character kind of funny looking. However, I don't know if the nostrils look good right there by the teeth, by those. Maybe I need to move these here and here. and then put the nostrils there. Yeah, I think that looks a little bit better. For some reason, having the teeth right there under the nostril took away from the nostril. And then maybe I can put a tooth here. That way I can separate them all really nicely. You see how separated they are? That looks amazing, I think. And then the face could be a little bit wider. And for this tusks, or these tusks right here, I think that shading on these things is gonna be so important, because it almost looks like it's connected to the top one here. So I need to separate these 2 pixels, and I'm gonna separate them with shading. So what I like to do is I'll take something like this color here, and I'll turn the opacity down to like halfway, and now I use that as shading. I don't just use like go straight to black. I kind of shade it with whatever color is next to it. Like let's say the mouth, for example, the mouth, I think I should add like purple into it, but I'm gonna go here, super bright purple, right? Like this kind of purple. Actually, let me make it a little bit, yeah, like this kind of purple. And I want this purple in the mouth, because I'm imagining like a purple tongue or something. But now I'm gonna put the opacity on it really low, even lower. And now I can look at that, and this color, I like this color, and now I can go ahead and fill this in with that purple. And it's so subtle, you almost can't see it. And I can also layer it. So for example, there can be a part of this where it's darker. I think the tongue would be lighter, and above the tongue would be darker. At least that's how I like to do it. So for example, now this lighter color here, it's actually representing the tongue. So whenever I draw a mouth, let's say this is the tongue, above the tongue I would go darker, like let's say like that, and this pink thing in the middle is the tongue. That's how I'm thinking about it. So it's a little bit lighter purple down here. And that could, with pixel art though, it could be interpreted in a lot of different ways. That could even be interpreted as a lip. So for example, if I went much lighter, and let me fade this out a little bit, and I put a line here, now it no longer looks like a tongue, now it looks like a lip. But I love it. I love that giant fat lip on the bottom there. It's amazing. And I'm testing out to see if it would look good in the corners or something. It does not. But wow, look at that. It feels almost like there's a little bit of depth there. I kind of think that these teeth are a little bit too bright. However, I can't make it that color. I cannot make the tooth that color because it's too similar to this skin tone. So there's 2 options. I can either keep that tooth that color, or if I did want to change the tooth color there to something darker, I don't want these 2 to be the same as I mentioned before, but let's say I did want this to be darker. What I'll then have to do is either, I need the contrast between these 2 to be different, so it stands out. I either need to make the skin tone lighter there, or what I need to do is make the skin tone darker there, because it needs to have that contrast. And I think the darker is gonna be the way to go, because this is gonna be under the eyes. So it being kind of dark under the eyes, I think is gonna be pretty fitting. And then I think here and here we're gonna have the eyes. And with eyes, there's several different colors you can go for. So for example, the black there for the eyes looks pretty good. You see how we created a sense of depth here too? A sense of form by having certain parts of the head be different colors. So with this dark here, I can also shade, for example, the sides of the head here. I kind of like that it wasn't perfectly symmetrical, but whatever. Sometimes when I have the symmetry tool out, it makes everything symmetrical, which is cool, but it looks less natural. So I like to use the symmetry tool to sort of draw a character, then turn the symmetry tool off and make little changes on one side or the other, like maybe put a bite into the ear, or make one ear point up a little bit more, or maybe have one of the tusks be chipped off. But anyway, back to talking about the shading. What you can do here, is that moving? I know, okay. I thought I was moving this. There's a button here to lock the preview in place and stuff like that. But anyway, the temples are a place that would probably have shading, so we can shade the temples here. And just me doing that, as you can see, what it did is it rounded the head out. Look how rounded that is just by shading the sides here, the temples. And then another part that often has shading is if you want to give things form and structure, is the sides of the jaws. And so I'm just gonna, it's kind of hard to do for this one. I don't think I really can, because it's because the tusks are exactly where the shading for the jaw would be. So I don't think we really need to shade that part. I kind of like the little pink here on the cheeks, and it can even be on the head. You know, it looks like a skin condition or whatever. So I do like putting a little bit of pigmentation into the head. So here we have this nice round noggin, and I'm gonna turn off the symmetry tool, and I'm going to add a highlight here. And just by adding one little highlight in, like, I don't know, whatever, the corner here, now when we zoom, that highlight is a little too shiny. I'm gonna try to mix it up here a little bit to make it look a little more natural. It was a little too gray. I think something like that. But just adding a little highlight like that on one side, it makes it look like there is a light coming from above. And actually, let me try a different color here. I'm gonna take this color and I'm gonna move it a little bit towards yellow. So something I like to do is when I add lighting to something, I go towards yellow. And then when I'm shading something, I add blue. This is a really, really good technique for creating highlights and shadows. So for example, there we added a little bit of yellow, and then here, you see this part of the head? Watch, I'm gonna go to blue, and I got blue here, and I'm gonna turn down the opacity even more, and I need to go towards a darker blue. And now I added a little bit of blue here. But just adding a little bit of blue into this, I think it needs to be darker. Let me get this color and go a little bit darker. I'm gonna overemphasize the blue, just so I can show you guys what I mean. But look, like this blue is pretty obviously blue, you know? Like if I drew something like that, that looks blue. It doesn't even look like a skin tone. However, used for shading, like when you're this close up, it almost looks wrong. But if we look here, it's awesome. It's awesome to have different tones in the skin. Oftentimes I see people doing pixel art and they do one color for the entire face, and then to shade it, they add black, and then to lighten it, they add white. But instead of using just white and black, like for example, here, of course, if we go down, we're adding black, and if we go up, we're adding white. Instead of just doing this, hue shift as well. Shift your hues. Don't just have one hue in your skin tone. It'll make your art look so much better. It'll take it to that next level. So adding the blue here for this shading, it makes it look better. It makes it look better, and don't overdo it, but you can overdo it. Okay, so this might not be like the perfect example, but I just want to point out, do you see these trees? They're blue. They're very, very blue. But it's all right. Everyone understands that it's dark and it's dim, and that's why they're blue, but they're actually green. However, I'm trying to point out that they didn't make the trees dark green, they made the trees dark blue. So oftentimes when you're making things dark, it's okay to shift it towards blues. And then when you start making things lighter, it's okay to shift it towards yellows. So this tree here in Shovel Knight's a good example, where here the shading, you can see it's purple. And so it has a tint of blue in it. And then the highlight here, the highlight has, it's a little bit like beige, pinkish or whatever, but the point is it's closer to the reds, the yellows. By the way, if you want to get feedback on your art, just follow and DM me on Twitter, and you might even appear in an episode of Pixel Art Critiques. So to me, it looks like this needs more contrast. And the easy way to do that is to go to Edit, Adjustments, Brightness and Contrast, or Hue and Saturation. I'm gonna go to brightness and contrast, and here we can fiddle with this. So I'm gonna lower, oh, I don't know about that. What if I bump up the contrast? Okay. I also like to give my artwork outlines. I often draw without outline, which is pretty funny because when I'm drawing pencil and paper, I draw the, I totally needed to have that symmetry tool on, but when I draw on paper, all I do is draw outline. However, when I draw pixel art, I don't focus on the outline at first. And here I did an outline just on the outside of this character, but I also sometimes like to put outlines on the inside of the character. So for example, here the ears, if we wanted to make it look like they were further back, I would put a line right there on the side of the head. And then these teeth, since they're kind of protruding forward, coming out of the face, I would probably put an outline on them as well. Maybe even, maybe something like that. So if you've been watching my videos, you know that something I like to do with outlines is I like to shade them as well. I think this is it gives it a really professional look. So I'm gonna take this skin tone color here, and I'm going to the top of the head where it gets light. I'm going to actually shade it lighter. And then the same thing for the teeth. For the teeth here, I don't think that the outline needs to be that dark. I'm going to lighten the outline up, but I'm going to leave it dark here near the bottom so that it looks kind of like it has some shading on it. And for the ears are really dark. I actually think that maybe the ears could even be a lighter color, especially if we wanted to emphasize them. And then same thing for here. I wouldn't leave the outline black near the top. I would actually lighten it up and maybe leave it black just like here near the bottom, so near the head, kind of to give it a little bit of shading. And I think I'm gonna put a little bit of shading there. And let's see, I feel like I'm missing something. Oh, you know what? I think that the tusks here, they might need to, yeah, I think the mouth needed a little bit more room there to look like it's open. So I'm gonna push the tusks a little bit lower here. And I think I'm going to make them all a little bit darker. Actually, these down here, they're almost the right color. I need something in between these two. Yeah, something like that. And I'm gonna use that for shading as well. And then near the tips of these tusks, I'm actually gonna lighten it up a lot. And it's gonna make them look a little bit sharper. You see what I'm doing there? I shaded towards light, and now the tusks look sharper. Especially if I make the background. I don't really like drawing on a white background because if you have a video game or if anywhere that you're working on your art, the background's not gonna be that bright, and it kind of messes with your head because it makes the colors look a little bit different. And I'll show you what I mean. Now that I made the background darker, look at the tusks. All of a sudden, like, right now the tusks aren't really that bright, right? However, if I do something like dark blue here, all of a sudden now the tusks look really bright. So I do think that it's important to change the color of the background when you're drawing. I don't think that drawing on a white background is good for helping you pick colors and decide what things should look like. I think I'm gonna add a little bit of a brow here, maybe something like this, kind of so it has that like crease in the middle, so it looks a little bit angry, you know. And then we're gonna shade the nose, and there's a ton of more things to do for this, but I'm gonna save it for a part 2. All right, guys. So I'll see you in a part 2 next week. I hope that your troll's coming along really good. Post it on Twitter, whatever you're drawing, and tag me so I can see it and give you feedback. I have a free art asset pack on Itch that you can use in video games or whatever you want. There's a link in the description. Please just follow me on Itch so you know when I add to the art asset pack. I'll see you guys next week. A Devla.